Hey, this is Rob Adams again at the Actors Workshop, doing my next segment, Inside the Abyss or In the Abyss. After my last episode, I got a few messages about other top 10 lists, etc. And we'll do plenty of those and have some fun. And like I said, we'll explore into music and other things. But it gave me an idea of doing a original versus sequel segment. And I kind of narrowed it down to a top 5, which will give us 10 movies, but 5 originals versus the sequel. And I've never been one to necessarily think or feel like the sequel has to be better than the original, but we may like the sequel better than the original. But all of these have a great sequel to a great original. So it was a fun list to do, and it was challenging. And it'll be interesting to see if you guys put in the comments your top 5 and or what your favorite one is, the original or the sequel. So let's get that going. We'll start with number 5, and that is Mad Max. And I am doing my DVDs, not Blu-rays, because a lot of my Blu-rays come in sets. So this way I can do them individually. So anyways, Mad Max, and that's versus The Road Warrior. Both great movies. Young Mel Gibson here. Great story. Fun story. Road Warrior, I just like a little bit more. I like the characters better in this. I like the story a little bit better in this. And I think there's a lot more bite to this movie than there is to Mad Max. Once again, Mad Max is great, and a lot of people would pick this. But for me, I'll go with The Road Warrior. I think also because I saw The Road Warrior before I saw Mad Max, that kind of plays into it a little bit. So for this one, I'm going to go with The Road Warrior. All right. At number 4, Superman. Can't go wrong, right? Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder, and of course the great Gene Hackman, which rivals with, and this is the theatrical version of Superman 2. Both great movies. It's interesting because I also have the Richard Donner edition of Superman 2, and this is the only version you can get on Blu-ray, by the way. So to be able to have the original theatrical version on DVD is kind of cool. A lot of people don't realize when they were making this movie, Richard Donner was filming both at the same time, and midway through, the studio wanted him to stop doing that because they wanted to get Superman out. So he stopped filming Superman 2, just finished up Superman 1, released that, and by the time they went to do Superman 2, Richard Donner was no longer the director. So they scrapped the material that he was doing. They kept the storyline for Superman 2, but they kind of scrapped the footage of what he was doing for Superman 2 while filming Superman. Anyways, the Richard Donner edition basically was the studio getting Richard Donner to come back and take the theatrical version and add the footage of Superman 2 that he had done and kind of put it all together. And that's what the Richard Donner edition gets you, is the connection between Superman and Superman 2 and all that extra footage, especially at the beginning of the film, to connect with the theatrical version, which is this one. For me, I'm going with the OG. I'm going to go with Superman. It's a classic, classic story, classic acting, and a really good movie. At number 3, Batman Begins versus The Dark Knight. I know people would know this is going to be on the list, and for a lot of people, this is probably number 1. First of all, because these are more modern. Also, because people have probably seen these movies more than some of the others. For me, it's number 3 on the list. I love both of these movies. I remember when they hired Heath Ledger to play the Joker, I was really skeptical, especially because I thought Nicholson did such a great job as his Joker in the first versions of the Batman, the Tim Burton versions of Batman, and then Batman Batman and then Batman Returns. So I was skeptical, and after seeing The Dark Knight, I was blown away by Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger made you feel like this guy was a true villain who just happened to wear makeup rather than the character of the Joker. I really felt like Heath Ledger was this guy who is the Joker, and they're both great performances. They're just very different movies, very different thing. So when I was going between Batman Begins, and I'm a big fan of Batman Begins, I love the actors in it, right? I love, Liam Neeson and Ken Watanabe and Rutger Hauer and Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman. I mean, you have these heavyweight actors in that film, and it's just a great story to set it going. I'm actually gonna give this a tie because I love both films so much. I love the story and the acting in Batman Begins. Um, Dark Knight is a whole different level. Heath Ledger alone makes it worth watching this movie. And I actually, when I watch this, I skip and just watch his parts at times. So for me, I know it is what it is. I call it a tie. Next, Star Wars, and yes, it's Star Wars. It's not A New Hope. When it came out, it was Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. It wasn't until later when he did the prequels that he started giving Star Wars, A New Hope, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back. So for me, it's Star Wars and then Empire Strikes Back. What's cool about these editions is when Lucas redid the the movie with his added scenes and added technology and added computer generated things, etc. They did a limited edition release with a bonus disc of the film the way it was when it was released, and that's what these versions are. So in this, I have the redone versions, the remastered, remix, whatever, but then I have the original theatrical versions of the film the way I saw them when I was a kid. So it's pretty cool. What's interesting about Empire Strikes Back is it's the only movie of these series that Lucas didn't direct. Irvin Kershner did, and he was more of an actor-friendly director. And so when you watch Empire Strikes Back, you really get more of a feel of the actors, right? The people, the Han and Leia story, and with Lando coming in and Vader, and then you got Boba Fett coming in, and so it is much more an actor-friendly movie compared to the others because the different director. I'm going to have to go with Star Wars only because it was the one I saw as a kid first and foremost, but cannot go wrong with Empire Strikes Back. I mean, it's a close second. As a matter of fact, I could call it a tie the same way I just did with Batman Begins and Dark Knight, but I'm gonna give a little bit of an edge to Star Wars. It is the OG. And then finally, you can probably guess it because you haven't seen it, The Godfather and The Godfather 2. Both great movies. What makes Godfather 2 pretty cool is it's a prequel and a sequel. Right? It has the flashbacks to the early Vito Corleone and telling you how he got into power, etc. But then it also gives you fast forwarding to present time in the story of Michael being the Godfather and running things in Nevada, etc. And it's kind of cool because it flips back and forth between the prequel and the sequel. Very unique and very original way of doing a movie. And it makes it almost like a standalone. So I love The Godfather. I think it's great, but I've always kind of leaned toward being more of a Godfather 2 fan because you get a little bit of everything. Yeah, you don't get as much Brando and you don't get as much James Caan. There's a couple scenes that they used in the movie, but whew. If you ask me tomorrow, I might say Godfather, I might say Empire Strikes Back, I might say Dark Knight. It's hard, but just doing it right now, my gut, my instinct is telling me, it's Star Wars, it's The Godfather 2. But once again, you can't go wrong with any of these films. So there you have it. There's my top 5 originals versus sequels. Going in order, I would say number 1, I'm going to go with Godfather 2. Number 2, I'm going to go with Star Wars. Number 3, I'm going to give it a tie. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go with Dark Knight. All right? I made a decision. So I'm going to go with Dark Knight. At number 4, I'm going to go with Superman. And last but certainly not least, The Road Warrior. So I'd be curious to see your comments, your thoughts. Watch these movies. See what makes them great. See what your opinion is. Watch it with the original first, though, then the sequel. All right? If you have any comments, once again, you can message me at my website, www.theactorsworkshop.com, or you can leave a comment in the comment section, or whatever you need to do. But anyways, I hope you are being safe and being smart and trying to make the most of this crazy period. All right? See you soon.